Hey y'all, welcome back to my channel. So for today's video, I'm actually going to be talking about sickle cell disease and just my journey and my experiences with sickle cell disease, and what my life has looked like over the past 28 years that I've had sickle cell. So the first thing that I want to do is start out with what sickle cell disease actually is. If you do not know, sickle cell disease is a relatively rare blood disorder excuse me, blood disorder that affects the hemoglobin, which basically, to put it simple, it affects the shape of your cells because your cells are lacking protein. So hemoglobin is a protein that everybody has in their blood, that kind of create that kind of soft, round, red texture. And in sickle cell disease, when we're lacking that hemoglobin, it actually causes our it causes our cells to look sickled shaped. So kind of think of a C or a crescent. And when these crescent shaped cells are traveling throughout the body, we can, well, it depends. A lot of things could happen. The first thing is you're lacking oxygen. So you're not getting the correct amount of oxygen to all of these different parts of your body. So that can be impacting our health in a number of ways, which include pain, which also include damage to our organs or to our muscle tissue, to our bones even. So just think of every place that your blood goes. If you're lacking hemoglobin, you're going to be impacted in all of those places. And then another thing is the cells, because they're kind of hard, they're kind of sticky, they can get stuck together, trapped in different arteries or different vessels. So think if a vessel is has a 90-degree angle, right, like this, and your blood is trying to get through that little small angle. Well, with sickle cells, sometimes they get clumped up there, and your blood is not able to travel through your vessels in the way that they should, and so that can cause a lot of pain. So anywho, what else? Generally, we spend time in a lot of pain. I feel like that is the number one associated symptom of sickle cell disease is pain. We usually have a hard time fighting off infections because sickle cell disease can also lower your immune system. And that's kind of the general gist of sickle cell. There is more than one type of sickle cell disease. I feel like people probably think that sickle cell is just one thing. No, because it's a genetic disease, because everybody is different, and the way that it impacts everyone is so different. Like, this disease is so broad in terms of how it impacts you, what it causes, etc. But just think of how everyone is so different. You're going to have different forms of sickle cell disease. So there is, I think, at least 7 known types of sickle cell disease that can range from SC, which is also called sickle cell anemia, to hemoglobin S, I believe, which is something. I'm sorry, my brain is all over the place because I am super tired and I am filming this video. But yeah, if you want to look into that, I do have my dissertation. I can link it down below for y'all if y'all are interested. It's a long read though, but I'll probably try to link in some simple explanations as well that talk about the different multiple types of multiple forms of sickle cell disease. And then another thing, this is going to go into one of my misconceptions videos, because I do want to do a video about misconceptions of sickle cell disease. But a lot of people think that this disease only affects Black people. That is not true. Not true at all. Anybody can be impacted by sickle cell disease, again, because it is a genetic disorder. Everybody can get it. It just so happens that Black people are impacted more so than others, but any and everybody can get this disease. Okay, so enough of that. Like I said, I will link some resources down below in the description box if you want to read more about sickle cell disease. I'm going to move on into my family history with sickle cell disease. So my mother had sickle cell disease, and yes, I said had. She passed away in 1998 at the age of 22 years old from complications due to sickle cell disease, I think, but also due to a comorbidity that she had, which I will probably do another series on that because I also have it. My uncle has it, my brother has it, and yeah, fun stuff. So my mom had the disease, the full disease, which means that she had to have gotten the trait from both her mother and her father, and they made her, obviously. And then when my mom had me, she had, you know, the full disease. My dad has the trait, therefore I got sickle cell disease. My brother, we have different fathers. My brother just has the trait. I don't know, like, if anybody else in my family, if they have the trait or not. I know my niece, my brother's daughter, has the trait as well. And then I have a cousin who is my mom's half brother, which, you know, we don't do that. We're black, we don't do that. But my mom's brother, they have different fathers. His daughter has sickle cell disease too. So all in all, there are 3 of us, at least within my mom and her siblings, who have sickle cell disease. And then moving along, I kind of want to talk about my journey throughout my life with sickle cell disease. So not only, I lost my mom, I was 4 years old when I lost my mom. And my experiences with sickle cell, when I was younger, was a lot worse in my opinion, in terms of like the pain crises that I had. So I experienced avascular necrosis because of my sickle cell disease, and that is essentially, you know what, I'm gonna look it up because I don't want to explain it to y'all right or wrong, because I do that sometimes. Okay, so essentially I wanted to look it up because I wanted to make sure that I'm giving you all accurate information. Essentially, avascular necrosis is when you're not getting enough blood and oxygen to your bones, and so your bones begin to die. Think of it like arthritis, but a little different. So you tend to have a lot of joint pain. Your bones are more likely to break, things like that. Thank God, so far in my 28 years of life, I have not broken a bone, and I don't plan on breaking a bone. But when I was younger, and I guess I was like developing avascular necrosis, when I tell you, first I developed it in my hips, right? And this is elementary school. My hips, I had to walk on crutches. My grandma, I feel like avascular necrosis was like just starting to like be studied and stuff like that, because they gave me a lot of stuff that like to this day I don't have to do anymore. But back in the day, they like had me walking on crutches because they didn't want me to be walking on my hips, because they didn't want them to break. They had me, I had a hospital bed at my house. I had a walker at my house, and a physical therapist would come out to my house and, you know, do physical therapy with me. And that continued for a while. And then moving into high school, I didn't walk on my crutches. I didn't want to walk on them crutches no more because it was just too much work, right? So I did fine without crutches for a very long time, until I want to say about sophomore year of high school. I had to be in a wheelchair, actually. And now that I think about it, middle school too, I had to be in a wheelchair. I had this wheelchair because I remember that specifically. I had this wheelchair that could like recline. It had a little thing where your feet could come out. You know what I'm saying? I thought I was cool in my little wheelchair, but I had to have it because of my avascular necrosis. And then moving into high school, I had to have it again. But then they also let me, you know, do the crutches moment, which I did for a little bit, but I was bad. Let me tell y'all one thing about me and sickle cell. I'm not letting sickle cell stop nothing, okay? I would take them crutches, because we lived in the projects. So we lived in the projects. I would have to walk to my bus stop. It was just a block away, right? And we had a laundry room. So what I would do, because my grandma wanted to make sure I was going to school with my crutches, but I didn't want to go to school with my crutches. So what I did was I would walk to the laundry room before I went to the bus stop, put my crutches in the laundry room, like put them in this little corner where it was the wall and then the laundry machine. I put my crutches right there all day, and then I dipped to school like that. Y'all, I don't know why I did that. And then I also, after having to do all of that, I think they made me, I can't remember, my memory is so shoddy, but I can't remember. I feel like they made me do the wheelchair after the crutches because I was over them crutches. So I remember them making me do the wheelchair, and I would not go to school. I refused to go to school, which is crazy because like in middle school I didn't care, but high school I did. And I remember I had missed some testing. Like, you know how they make you do the statewide testing and stuff. And so they made me go to school to take those tests, and they had to come get me on the bus where ain't no seats in there, and they pick you up in your wheelchair. And I went to school like that, and I was very sad. I'm not gonna lie, that was very difficult for me. I think having to be in a wheelchair and see some of my friends and peers seeing me. I think it was during the summer though, so it like wasn't too many people, but it was still some people that I knew. And so that was just, for me, it was a very hard time. But then after that, I ended up, I think this, if the order is correct, the order might be out of correct, y'all, or the order might be a little incorrect. Sorry. I should have wrote stuff down, but I did the dance team in high school. Oddly enough, avascular necrosis and all, I did the dance team, and I was on there for a year. Granted, I got sick a couple times, but okay, back to elementary school. I'm supposed to be talking about elementary school, and I done went down everything. Elementary school, I would say it was harder in terms of having pain crises, and like just not being able to really verbalize or understand what's going on with my body too well. So there was that. And in elementary school, in terms of treatment and medications that I got, I was on penicillin. That was like the only medicine that they used to treat me at that time, because y'all, I'm 28. Okay, elementary school was early 2000s for me. Penicillin, that was it. Penicillin is the antibiotic. That's all they was giving me. And sometimes when I was in the hospital, they would give me blood transfusions as well. I've been getting blood transfusions all my life. So shout out to you if you donate blood. I very much appreciate it. Yeah, I'm trying to think of back in the day, elementary school. I think the biggest thing that happened that I remember from elementary school in terms of just my overall experience is I remember having to go to the ER. And all my life I have had the smallest veins that according to nurses, they roll a lot. They're super tiny, and like, I mean, right now you can't even see the veins in my arms. Like, that is just how it is, right? You can't even see like color, anything. And I remember they were trying to get an IV on me. I'm a little kid. They were trying to get an IV on me, and they ended up poking me like 12 times. I was screaming and hollering because back then I did not like getting stuck with needles. I hated it. So I would scream and holler every single time. But I remember that because I remember my grandpa going off. He was pissed, livid. I also remember one time, I think that I when I was younger too, I used to use sickle cell disease to my advantage. And looking back and saying that now, it sounds wild, but I was a kid, you know what I'm saying? And the only time that I felt like I really got any attention was when I was sick. And so I would, you know, exaggerate a little bit, because yes, it was painful, but sometimes I would exaggerate. Because I remember one time I went to the hospital and I kept saying I was sick. I don't even know what was wrong with me, y'all. I don't know. But I remember at that time, something was going on with my grandma, and she ended up having to get admitted in the hospital when I was supposed to be getting admitted in the hospital. And I was acting a fool. Acting a punk. Like, bruh, I was acting a fool for no reason. I also, last thing pertaining to elementary school, then I'll skip. I also remember a doctor like telling me and my grandma that I would be addicted to pain meds. Not I have a chance to be addicted to pain meds, that I would be addicted to pain medicine. And it's just like, how can you say that? Why would you put that on my life? You, like, have you heard of self-fulfilling prophecy? You keep telling people that's what they're going to be, that's what they're going to do. That's going to be in their head. Like, don't, especially to a child, like, don't do that. And so that was my first interaction with like negativity in the healthcare industry. But I got plenty of stories from elementary and middle school concerning nurses, doctors, all that. So yeah, enough about that. Let's move into middle school and high school. I've already told you a little bit. I was on the dance team, did all that stuff. Whatever. Middle school, I don't really remember too much. I do remember that for years, like, they kept saying, oh, your spleen is too big, your spleen is too big, eventually you're gonna have to get it taken out. In middle school, I did end up getting my spleen and my gallbladder taken out at the same time, and then I had my first port put in, and I will show y'all, don't mind me unbuttoning my top, but I had a port here, and it actually wasn't here. They put it under my left breast, because I was in middle school, and the doctor was like, you know what, we're gonna put it lower because, you know, I know you're in middle school, I know you're young, and you probably like to wear v-necks or like to wear off the shoulder, or, you know, just like to do what kids do or wear what kids wear. So she didn't want me to feel embarrassed, which I appreciate that so much that she did that for me. But my port was down here. And every time I would go to the hospital, nurses, doctors, all of them would be like, huh, I've never seen a port down there. So I don't know if she's supposed to do that, but she did it and I appreciated it. Because I think I was a little bit hesitant and nervous about that, because I've always cared too much what people think about me. Not now, but back in the day, I always did care about people's perceptions of me. So those were the big things in high school, or in middle school. And in middle school, I do remember that that's when hydroxyurea came out, because that was the same doctor. That doctor is the first person to put me on hydroxyurea, which is probably the most well-known drug to treat sickle cell disease. I know there are others. I've not ever tried those others. Hydroxyurea seems to work well for me. That and folic acid or iron pills, depending on which one your doctor wants to prescribe you, are kind of most common nowadays. And then high school, the major thing that happened to me in high school with my sickle cell disease, I felt like, so moving into high school, I feel like I was less sick than I was in elementary and middle school, but it was more severe is how I feel like it was for me. But in high school, I remember I had just moved to Wagner, so this was in my sophomore year, and it was right before school started, and me and my cousins, we were all at my Uncle Bubba's house, and we were playing the Connect. It was snowing outside, it was cold, you know, wintertime, whatever, but we were playing the Connect, and I was fine. Whole day I was fine. Started playing the Connect, was still cool, played a couple rounds, and then I sat down. And as soon as I sat down, pain everywhere. My entire body was in pain. And they had to take me to the hospital. That same, like, literally, that's within like 20 minutes or less, they had to take me to the hospital. Come to find out, not only was I having a sickle cell pain crisis, I also had pneumonia, really bad, which, that's another, well, I'll talk about it when I talk about adulthood. But I also had pneumonia, and I was in the hospital for a very long time. At first, I was in Wagner Hospital. Wagner Hospital is ass. Sorry to any of my friends that work there or whatever, but Wagner Hospital, ass. They kept me there for a while, was not doing good. They had me so fucking doped up on pain meds. It was crazy. They ended up flying me to St. Francis in Tulsa, and this is all in Oklahoma. They ended up flying me to St. Francis in Tulsa. Thank God that they did. Where, you know, that's where my hematologist was, because of course small town Wagner, they don't have specialist doctors or specialties, whatever. So most of my doctors I had to go to Tulsa to see, even when I lived in Muskogee, which is not as rural as Wagner, but anyways, that's neither here nor there. So I went there, my hematologist was there, and when I came in to the hospital, he said that he was trying to ask me questions and talk to me and, you know, kind of see how I was feeling, stuff like that. And he said that I was answering him slow. I was like, it just seemed like I was just dazed, and like he didn't understand what was going on. And so I'm getting emotional. I didn't think what happened. but he did a either a CAT scan on me or he did a angiogram, which is where they go through a vein in your leg to kind of see in your brain. And that's when he found brain aneurysms in my head. He found multiple. I think at the time there were 2 brain aneurysms. And so he had started treating the brain aneurysms while I was in the hospital. Mind you, still had pneumonia, still was having a sickle cell crisis. The pain was not getting any better. And that was the first time too, like the pain was so bad and so excruciating. They gave me pain patches, which were fentanyl based pain patches, which I would not recommend anybody to take them things, because when I tell you they put that pain patch on me, like at one time, less than an hour later, I passed out. Didn't even know. I was on my computer in a chair and I woke up. I didn't even remember falling asleep. Nothing. But I will say, Tulsa Children's Hospital, that was literally one of the best experiences I've ever had in a hospital. They had amazing food. They had amazing services for children. I got to play video games. I got to get on the computer. It was a good time, especially as a kid. So super great. But yeah, so I ended up being in the hospital for like 2 weeks over the course of like me being in Wagner and then me going to Tulsa. I think it was 2.5 weeks that I was in the hospital. That's the longest I had been in the hospital in my entire life. And then I remember getting out and I was still sick. I missed the first week of school because I had just got out of the hospital. And boy, I am so thankful that doctors don't do this anymore. But back then, I was sent home with, I was not sent home with them fentanyl pain patches. I don't think, child, I don't know, okay? I wasn't managing my medicine. But I was sent home with liquid morphine, morphine pills, and others, like a bunch of other stuff. Craziness. I remember too, that's when my tailbone first started hurting. Ooh, that tailbone pain is the worst motherfucking pain that, oh my God, like it just is so bad. Like imagine your tailbone, your ass hurting like that. So anyways, that actually leads me into adulthood and my experiences in college. So thankfully, I feel like once I got into adulthood, that the pain crises started happening less frequently. It seems that my sickle cell has started to be a little bit more manageable. I was down from like 3 or 4 hospitalizations a year, because let me tell you really quick, when I was in high school, there's just so much to tell, so I'm sorry, but when I was in high school, there was one point where I missed at least half of the semester, if not more. So man, like I was in the hospital so much in elementary, middle school, and high school actually. And then into adulthood, it dropped down to like one pain crisis a year. And now that I think about it, was I on hydroxyurea in middle and high school? Or did that start in adulthood? Yeah, child, I don't know. But something changed and my crisis went down to 1 a year. And right now, over the past few years, I would say it's been 1, maybe 2 a year. Most of my hospitalizations in the past few years have been related to other comorbidities, which basically just means like health concerns that happen in occurrence with some other chronic health issue or whatever. But yeah, college, it was okay. I was okay. I was able to, be active. I started going to the gym a lot. I started eating really healthy. Granted, college has its own struggles, but we're not talking about that right now. There were a few times where, thank God, I had just amazing friends and an amazing support system throughout college. So they would take me to the hospital, sit with me, and just be there for me when I needed them. Because I was far away from family, and family didn't have transportation or none of that to just get to me quickly, Granted, and I live 2 hours away. Ain't nobody driving 2 hours away because you go to the hospital. I wouldn't expect nobody to do that unless it was very, very, very serious. So I remember like my friend Ryan carried me down the stairs because I couldn't walk. And that was like him and my other best friends, Eric, Levante, or Levante wasn't there yet, but Eric and Destiny, seeing me deal with sickle cell disease. I could not walk. Could not. And he had to carry me and stuff. But shout out to them because they really helped me in college. And then my teachers, all of my teachers were so understanding. I didn't go through disability services because I didn't know that was a thing at first. First generation college student. Didn't know that was a thing. And then when I did find out, I think I was still in the mindset of like, I don't have this disability. I don't need that. Which, girl, yes you do. And it's okay. Like, get your support. But I didn't go that route, and all of my teachers were so understanding. I was an RA, and my boss, like my bosses, they were understanding about that. I need to stop using acronyms. RA, resident assistant, so I lived in the dorms and was over a floor. But yeah, so overall college was good. And then the past couple of years, it has just felt like things just keep hitting me back to back to back. Like, I feel like sickle cell wise, I'm pretty okay. But the shit that sickle cell causes has got me in a chokehold. And not a good chokehold. Not that there's any good chokeholds, but you know what I'm saying? Like, it's just like constantly all these things happen. It just feels like something new is always coming up. Like, so during college, I got my port taken out. And I used to have angiograms just to check on those brain aneurysms that they found when I was in high school. And whew, this is hard. It went from 2 to 9. I have 9 brain aneurysms. Still have avascular necrosis. These bones still dying. And now it's not just in my hips. It's my shoulders, my tailbone. So I'm almost in some type of pain every day. I have migraines consistently. I am on like 5 migraine medications. Some of them preventative, some of them like more so reactive. Or proactive, sorry. No, reactive. And they're unrelated to the brain aneurysms. I have sickle cell retinopathy, which basically means that my retina is slowly detaching from my eyeballs. And I know I'm laughing, but like, this shit is hard. It's hard as hell. And I put on a brave face every fucking day. It is hard. Whew. Okay, I'm gonna calm down. So back to sickle cell retinopathy. I have that, and I literally have this big gray spot in my vision in my left eye where I can't see. So if someone is in my way right here, like me doing this, I can't see. I can barely see a whole chunk of my camera. I can't see me on the screen. I can see my hand a little bit, but I can't see me on my little monitor on my camera. And then the vision in this eye, pretty blurry. I also have astigmatism. I forgot which eye, but that's kind of unrelated, I feel like. I'm trying to think of what else. Matter of fact, I'm going to check my medical ID. If you have a chronic illness, you should 100% use your medical ID on your device, because it can be a lifesaver, especially when you go to the damn hospital and they asking you 15,000 times what diseases you have, or, you know, different things like that. because they will do that, and I don't understand. If I've been coming to this hospital for months, you should have my whole history on file, and you should ask me if I have anything new to add. That it just don't make no sense to me, but that's another video for another day. So I have asthma, thankfully light, like I don't really need to do anything for that. Never had an asthma attack. Oh, that reminds me. So before I go on the list of all my medical conditions, I mentioned pneumonia earlier. I have had pneumonia almost every single time that I went to the hospital. I've been walking around with pneumonia. I went to work once with, well, more than once with pneumonia. Didn't really realize I had it. Knew I was feeling kind of but it was pneumonia. Which, granted, I feel like sickle cell has made me so fucking resilient. And I keep cussing, but oh well. Sickle cell has made me resilient as hell. Which is why I want a resilient tattoo. With the S as little sickles. But anyway. And I feel like a normal person, if they got pneumonia, they down and out for the count. Me, I'm like, what are we doing? Let's go. You know? So I will say that's one of the parts of sickle cell disease that I'm not mad at, if that makes sense. Okay, talked about all those. Recently, last year actually, found out that I have dextroscoliosis, which means my back kind of curves to the left a little bit. And then last year, I also found out that I have atypical HUS, which I'm gonna give y'all a definition of atypical HUS here in a second. So atypical HUS is basically just a condition that affects the blood. So blood disorder like sickle cell disease, add on atypical HUS, and that's why my mommy died. Especially because it is a very, very rare disease. Like, sickle cell is not as rare as this disease. This disease is so rare, and I think that back in the day, nobody had a clue what that was. And so, my mom suffered because of it. But thank God that they know what it is today. So, essentially, something in our blood starts making our blood attack and destroy each other. This is the simplest way for me to explain it. And so not only does that add on an extra layer of like my body not being able to fight off infections, so I get sick way easier, it can also damage your organs, especially the kidneys. So right now, technically, I'm in chronic kidney disease. So let's add that to the list of medical conditions that I have. Chronic kidney disease because of atypical HUS and sickle cell disease, because sickle cell can also impact your kidneys. So yeah, all the lovely things. So real quick, I talked about treatments. Hydroxyurea is the main one for me. I also have taken folic acid. I've taken iron in the past. Currently for the atypical HUS, I take a $42,000 infusion every 8 weeks called Ultomiris. So that's lovely. What else? Blood transfusions, I think I said that. Yeah, that's kind of the general consensus, you know, outside of making sure that you drink your water and all that stuff. And I wrote in my notes that I was going to tell y'all how I manage and keep a positive attitude. Bitch, I don't know. Okay. I don't know. I think I do very good at ignoring things until it comes up. I spend a lot of time crying. Yeah. But I think another, like realistically, things that I do is I just keep myself busy. School was a big motivating factor. My friends, doing things that I love, reading, crafting, like just, you know, making sure that I don't allow sickle cell to run my life. Because I got sickle cell, but sickle cell ain't got me, okay? Like that's the simplest way for me to put it. I got it, but it ain't got me, and it never will. And I've always been this way. I've always been the one that, you know, despite having sickle cell, I'm gonna try out for the basketball team. I'm gonna try out for the dance team. And if I get sick in the process, oh well. I think that although I was stubborn and hard-headed, that also helped me to learn my body. And that is one of the most important things. I am going to make a separate video, because this video is already super long, about living with sickle cell disease as an adult and kind of some tips for living with sickle cell disease as an adult. And I think it'll be very essential for people, especially young people who might be 16, 17 and need to learn how to do this on your own. And then I'm also going to make another video to where I am talking about tips and tricks for caring for a child with sickle cell disease, or talking to your child who has sickle cell trait, because it is so important. If anything, I hope that from this video today you learned a little bit about sickle cell disease. You got to hear from someone who has sickle cell disease, and that you also go and find out if you have sickle cell traits. I think that's so important. Find out if your partner has sickle cell trait, because yeah, it's important. Granted, there are a couple of cures out there, but you don't want your child to have to experience the things that I've experienced. You don't want your child to have to fight so hard for themselves and their career and their life just for sickle cell to come and knock them down a couple notches. Because it'll do that sometimes. Like, I say that I let myself, I ignore it, or, you know, I keep going, keep pushing, but it's knocked me down a couple times. But the good thing is I keep getting back up because I'm stubborn. But yeah, so I hope you learned something today. Make sure you go get tested. And if you have any questions, if you want to see more videos, drop those down in the comments. And if you have not already, go ahead and like this video and subscribe to my channel. There will be more content. I'm making a series out of this because I feel like it's important for people to know about sickle cell disease, and I feel like it's important for you all with sickle cell disease or with any chronic health issue to see somebody who understands, who is going through that same thing, but also who is a professional, who has a career, who is not letting this disease be such a huge obstacle for them, which is easier said than done. But yeah, I'm gonna stop talking now because I'm rambling, but I will see you all in the next video. Bye.